Welcome to the RPC Church podcast. We are so excited for you to listen along and hear this week's message. We pray that it inspires and motivates you and draws you closer to Jesus. Now, let's take a listen.
I want to focus on one passage from Isaiah. Isaiah 58, verses 10 and 11. I mean, the whole passage is really good. It's great, and you should read it. It's because God has a word for you here. But let's just read that passage. You can read it with me. If you spend yourselves on behalf of the hungry and satisfy the needs of the oppressed, then your light will rise in the darkness, and your night will be like the noonday. The Lord will guide you always. He will satisfy your needs in a sun-scorched land and will strengthen your frame. You will be like a well-watered garden, like a spring whose waters never fail. When I read that, that challenged me. It makes me reevaluate, what are my priorities, right? Makes me think about eternity. What's God going to say in the end, right? What really matters in our lives? What really matters? God says, if you spend yourselves on behalf of the hungry and satisfy the needs of the poor, and would you agree there's a lot of hungry people? A lot of oppressed people in the world? Absolutely. So God is really saying, if you're selfless, not selfish, he's saying there's great reward, right? If you spend yourselves, says, your light will rise in the darkness. How amazing is that? What's that light? That's that understanding. The Bible often refers to light as giving understanding or giving wisdom or knowledge. Okay? He says, your light will rise in the darkness. Says, your night will become like the noonday. You don't know? You're in the dark. You don't know. God says, go on outreach, right? Help the poor. Help the oppressed. Then that darkness, that not understanding will be like the noonday. And it says, the Lord will guide you always. That's an incredible promise. Actually, you can look at this as really a wellness verse, these verses. If you want to be well, do what God says, right? Okay. He will satisfy your needs in a sun-scorched land. You don't have that problem here usually. Rain-soaked maybe, but not sun-scorched, right? Where we are, it's about 40 Celsius right now, so we understand sun-scorched. But God says, no matter what, you're in lack, God says he'll supply your needs, right? He will, right? Jehovah Jireh, he says he'll take care of your needs. He says he'll strengthen your frame. Doesn't mean the frame of your house, okay? He means this one, right? For his purpose and for his glory. Yeah, we're all our frames will fade in the end. But God says, I'll strengthen it for my purpose, for what you're doing for him. It says you'll be like a well-watered garden. Who likes a garden here? Who has a garden? What happens if you don't water it? Dead, nothing left, right? God says, you'll be like a well-watered garden. You'll be strong. You'll be strength. It says, like a spring whose waters never fail. It's pretty simple, right? God says he'll water you, he'll strengthen you, he'll give you what you need. Okay? But that very first word is what you need to pay attention to. If. Right? If you do that, if you satisfy the needs of the hungry and the oppressed, then God will do that. I can't help but think, what if we don't? We're missing out on an incredible blessing, right? We are. Doing God's will is incredibly satisfying. It can be tough. It can be hard. You might go to prison. I hope you don't. But if, then it's good. It really is. What happens if God brings you a team of 23 young people? That's what we have right now. We have 23 people that we work with on the border. And any youth ministers here? They're all away. Oh, no. Okay. Well, I think you understand if you're a parent. If you have a bunch of kids, what do? You got to keep them busy, right? They got to have something constructive to do. Usually we don't have a problem. The oldest guy in our team he's quite old, actually. He's 33. The rest of them are between kind of 18, 19, and about 26, 28. We really don't have a problem keeping them focused because they are focused on sharing the gospel. meeting the needs of the hungry and the oppressed. Okay? So it's amazing. But they all come from tough backgrounds. Some of them grew up in boarding homes, migrant boarding homes. Some of them escaped the war. Some of them grew up in refugee camps. Some of them lost at least a parent or two. Most still have extended family in Myanmar or Burma. Okay? So at 39, it keeps me young when I work with these. Maybe I'm not 39. But it keeps me young working with these people who are just so dedicated and passionate and just want to see people come to know Jesus. What happens if help in Jesus' name reaches those suffering? What happens when you extend yourself and you reach those who are suffering? Earthquake relief happens. Children without access to school get access to school. Communities and families in crisis get helped. Migrant schools and IDP camps, which is internally displaced people camps, receive food and Bibles and things like that. And I can say, hope happens. Hope happens. Because when we do that, you can go to the next couple slides, then God is at work. We can never really say we're at work, but we see God at work when we're doing what he asks us to do. Okay. Should be on slide 6, sorry. What happens if you send out to the poor and needy things like 112,279 kilograms of rice? That's what we sent out last year. If you like pounds, it's 247,000 pounds of rice. How many eat that much in a year? I know we're in Richmond and there's a lot of Chinese people here. Ni hao, ni men怎么样? Okay. I know we ate a lot of rice in China, but, what happens when you do that? People, through continuing to go back into communities, people start to come to know the Lord. Last 2 weeks ago, April 20th, we sent 1,300 school kids into Myanmar. Even though there's war going on, people and kids still want to go to school. Can you believe that? Okay. Here we have a rain day and people want to stay home, right? There, they can't meet in schools usually anymore. They're meeting in jungles. They're meeting in the forest. They're meeting in trenches in case they're dropped bombs, but they want to go to school. But they need things like pens, pencils, and notebooks, all that kind of stuff. So we get to send 1,300 backpacks or school kits into 18 rural schools in the conflict zones because people want to know, want hope. Right now, in the last few weeks, we've been doing something we call dive-in camps. Okay? We did a kind of a sea theme, but the whole idea was based around Paul. Remember what happened to him? At the end, right? He's on a boat, right? He's going sailing on a little cruise. Anybody been on a cruise? His cruise is a little bit different than this. And of course, big storm comes, and what does the angel say to Paul? Don't worry, it's going to be okay. What does Paul then say to the people? He says, take courage. These are all the people in the boat, the other prisoners, the guards, the crewmen. Take courage, for I believe God, it will be just as he said. And they were what? They were all saved, right? They're all saved. So we're teaching this in these camps. We've done 8 camps so far, somewhere between 50 and 120 kids at each camp in various places, from migrant schools to homes to an IDP camp. Right now, might be around now, I don't know, we're doing one deep in the jungle in southern Myanmar. And the reason I don't know exactly is because there was no communication with our team who's in there right now. We won't hear from them again until about May 8th, maybe 9th, when they come out. They went in more than 10 days ago. And there's no communication. But we know what's going to happen. Hope is going to come. Because when they're reaching the poor, when they're reaching the oppressed, things will happen. This is the second time we've gone into this area. And it's great. Well, I forgot to tell you, I told you it's 40 Celsius there, right? About, give or take. So here we have how many seasons? 4. There we only have 3. Okay? Hot, hotter, and really hot. Okay? So you can say we're in the really hot season right now. That's why I'm here. It's a little cooler. But I'm tempted to wear a sweater when I get up in the morning. But anyways, that's another thing. So we've completed 8, 2 more to go. And it's great. Can I tell you a story about what happens when we go into a Buddhist school? I actually can't call this school. It's called a Buddhist school now. I have to call it formerly Buddhist school, which is good news, right? The school we call Greenwater. It's a migrant school. And we started going there about 2 years ago. And we go in not to preach, but to be a friend. So this is the headmaster of the school. She's in the red, and that's one of our staff members in white. This is Waso. Waso, by the way, I won't tell you the story, but she was healed of a blind eye. And she shares that everywhere she goes. God healed me. Doctors didn't believe it, but it happened. So anyways, we're going to the school for about 2 years. Every Friday we've been going. Actually, once a month we start going because we wait to see, God, is this where you want us to be? Is this where what we should be doing? We're looking for God's fingerprint on it. And so we started going there. And then, long story short, this head teacher in the red, last year she was healed of cancer. Okay? She had surgery. She didn't tell us. It was during the school break, which is right now. And then we heard about she had to go back to find out, did she or did she not have cancer? And long story short, she had lost all her money, and they don't make very much money in these schools. It's all by donation. And we took her, sent our truck, sent 2 staff, sent Waso with her. They waited all day at the hospital for the doctor to say at the end of the day, appointment is 4:30. Finally saw the doctor, appointment's at 8:30. Saw the doctor at 4:30. And then the doctor said, you're cancer-free. And she said right after to Waso, because Waso had the whole day to talk to her, said, I prayed to Buddha for 2 months. He didn't answer. You prayed to your God one day, and he answered. Short time after that, she said, could you have a worship service at our school? Formerly Buddhist, right? Formerly Buddhist. Then the doctor said also, you'll probably never have children because of the surgery that she had. So we prayed again. About a month ago, she had a baby girl. Because you know what? God always gets the last word, right? The doctors do not get the last word, okay? Only God gets the last word. Healed of cancer, now has a baby girl, and she wants another worship service at her school, the formerly Buddhist school. Okay? So pray for the children in the many different schools that we work in. This next slide is a picture of part of that worship service at that school. And the kids are all open to Jesus, all hearing about him now. Now we go to that school every week. And the teacher always wants us to pray for the other teachers. And when we did the first worship service at that school, first of all, the kids didn't know what to expect, but they were eager for anything. And neither did the teachers, except the head teacher knew a little bit. And they invited some lady to come in and cook lunch for everyone. So we provided the food, and she cooked. She said at the end of it all, she's in her 50s, she says, this is the first time in my life I've heard about Jesus. If it was only for her, it was worth it. Now she's becoming a follower of Jesus. We get to visit families too. We visit families in crisis. And so this next slide shows a very simple hut where most people live. They don't live in brick houses for the most part. This is Nada. This is where she lives. We got a call September last year, and the social welfare department who we work with, they always give us the impossible cases, which is good. That's okay, because we have a God who deals with the impossible, right? They invite us to help people who have no ID and they officially cannot help. So they call us in September and they said, this lady, we'd never met her before, her name is Nada. She lost her husband and middle child. They were both electrocuted on the road. The power line came down and I don't know if they drove over it or whatever, and they were electrocuted. And she's just beside herself. She's inconsolable. They say, we can't do anything. She's just crying and crying all day long. She has a baby about a month or two old. She has a 10-year-old. And now she's lost the breadwinner for the family. They live just in a rural community 2 hours from us up in the mountains. And so we said, okay, we'll go. we sent Waso again, who you saw. And we get up to this community, and Waso is just so compassionate, so empathetic with people. Spent a couple of hours with her. And at the end of it, Nada is saying, are you going to come back? Waso says, of course we're going to come back. We'll come back every month. She says, really? And she's basically holding on to her, saying, are you really going to come back? Are you really going to come back? We've been back every month since September. So 2 months ago, Nada, we go to see her, and she says this, I forgot the name of your God again. So I just prayed to the big God in heaven. Is that okay? Do you think that works? Absolutely. And she says, when I prayed to the big God in heaven, then I felt peace. I felt his presence again. And then last month they were there again. She says, just remind me one more time of your God's name, who's now becoming her God. And they said, Jesus. So she kept repeating, Jesus, 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 Jesus. And God hears that too. When I was in prison, I remember my most common prayer was, help. No fancy words, just help. God hears Nada. Now the whole village of 17 houses is coming to know Jesus. She says, come, and I'll gather the whole village next time you come again. Because when we help the poor, when we reach out to the oppressed, God says things will happen. And they do. And Nada is just one of a dozen people we visit on a monthly basis. Some are in far worse condition. But now she's learning to trust that God has her back. God is in charge. And he will always get the last word. So pray for Nada and the many families we visit every month. Because remember, right? If you spend yourselves on behalf of the poor and satisfy the needs of the oppressed. Okay. Can I tell you about another community? So this one's called NBD, Nobode. It's hard to pronounce, but Nobode community is a migrant community. Bit of a story behind this one. So we have 4 of our staff who have been to a Bible academy. It's just a 2-year, very practical kind of Bible academy in our little city. And as one of their projects, their outreach projects, they had to go to a community they'd never been to and spend a week there. So they chose 2 of our staff, and before they were our staff, they chose this community called Nobode, and they told their teacher and told some other people they're going to go to that community and spend a week and just see what God does. And then people said to them, oh, don't go there. They kill Christians there. Would you go? They did. And because they're still our staff today, they didn't get killed, okay? But God started to do a work in that. Then they didn't go back there for 3 years. They did their school assignment, and that was it. So about 2 years ago, they were deciding, where else should we go? What else should we do? And Edda, one of our team leads, he says, I think God's telling us to go to this community I went to 5 years ago. Nobode. And we said, okay, well, let's go visit and see. We really only go to places we're invited. We don't just, it's not random, ever random. So we went to that community, and we started going once a month, because that's what we always do. We go to places once a month, and we just see, God, are you at work here? If God's hand is on it, then we bump it up to twice a month. Then we can bump it up to once a week. So we go back to this community. Been going for over 2 years now. And then at Christmas, we had a Christmas outreach, part of Sweet December. And we presented a drama, some songs and things like that. We did it at actually 17 different places, locations that month. And Edda comes up to us, because we let them lead it. And he says, I think God's saying we need to ask all of them if they want to follow Jesus. I said, go ahead, ask them. It's not in English, it's in Korean, different language. And so he gets up at the end and he says, I just want to give you an opportunity. If you want to follow Jesus, please stand up. The entire community of 120 people stood up. At first we're thinking, did they really understand what he said? afterwards, the leader of that village, that community, came up to Etta and said, we all met before, and we all decided, if you ask us today about following Jesus, we will all say yes. God is working on both sides, right? If Etta hadn't been obedient and said, I'm going to ask them today, God already prepared their hearts. So then we started discipleship in January. And, maybe I doubt sometimes, or I just kind of wonder, God, will anybody show up? Will a few people show up of that 120? Well, I didn't really need to worry because 140 showed up the first week. And every week since, 200 have been showing up. So all of a sudden we got this problem, right? How would it be, Aaron, if 200 people just accept the Lord today and they wanted discipleship tomorrow? Would that cause a challenge? You find exactly. So we quickly had to say, okay, team, what are we going to do? Okay, now we have to have a children's ministry, a youth ministry, and an adult ministry tomorrow, right? But God does things like that because we've been preparing our team for things like that, not knowing when, where, or how. And as I said, we had over 1,000 people in different communities say yes to Jesus over December. Amazing. But yeah, it is challenging. But it's good, right? We use what we call a SEEDS discipleship program. It's Seeds of Peace, Seeds of Hope, Seeds of Love, and Seeds of Power. So our team translated it. We've been using that in 4 different languages. English, of course. Then we have Karen, Burmese, and Thai that we use it in. And just amazing. So pray for these grads you'll see. The grads in the next photo just shows some of the youth who graduated. It means they attended the entire first book of Peace. Okay? And then we had all the kids who were coming. So we had to quickly arrange something for the kids. They couldn't do the adult book. But you know what happened the week before this? We finished translating a kid's book, right, called Jesus My Best Friend. So one of our staff says, oh, we've got the answer here. We'll use this. Because, God's timing is always perfect if we follow it, right? It's always perfect. So it's amazing because when we see these things, we see God at work if, right? Okay. So pray for these kids. But now we have 4 communities we're doing outreach into, or discipleship into. And this is the 4th community that we've been going to once a month. Now they're saying, could you come every week and teach us the Bible? So really we have 4 communities just saying, will you start a church here? They're asking us. They're coming to our staff every week, and 2 or 3 of them are saying, should we get baptized? We read about that. And our staff say, yeah, we have to do that, right? Don't we? Great challenges to have, great challenges. But let me tell you about one of our staff. And we have incredible staff, and her name is Hea Tao. And she's slightly taller than this table. She's really small. And she's been with us for 2 years, and this is her. And she wants to be a nurse. She's just very compassionate. She has the Band-Aids ready whenever somebody gets hurt. She's always like that. So, but for 2 years, she's had no ID. And this is a big problem where we work. People just don't have ID. They don't have a passport. They don't have an ID. So we have to be careful where we go because we have checkpoints. The border security or the police do checkpoints. So we have a message system where if someone hears about a checkpoint, and this is all over the area, they'll tell us there's a checkpoint here right now. And it helps also that one of our staff is former military. He knows where all the checkpoints are. So it's great. That's great. He's a young guy too. But so she's doing, how are we going to get her an ID? In order to get an ID, you have to go back to your home village and change from a child ID to an adult ID. Her village is in the midst of conflict right now. Her parents are hiding in the jungle. She can seldom hear from them because they have to go up a mountaintop to get a signal to say hello. Right? So what's she going to do? And we've been asking around, and there are ways. But then all of a sudden, somebody came out from her home village. A girl about her age and her mother, they came out. And we met them because they're at one of the boarding homes that we work with. And they said, we're going back in a week. And Heo, which we call her, just said, I think God's saying I need to go back with them. And we're kind of Well, you have to go through the war, right? You realize that. She says, yes, I know, but God's saying go. Does she go? Absolutely. She went. The first night we get a message saying, I'm at this location. Okay, great. Second night, we get another, I'm at this location. By the third day, she gets to where she's going. She had to walk through forest. She had to take vehicles. She had to take a boat, all different things. She gets to her home village. And then she says, my parents aren't here. I don't know how to contact them because they have her childhood ID. And she finds out they're a long ways away. She needs the papers, the actual papers, to go into this place to start changing her ID. Again, she makes contact with her parents. They send her a photo. Is that good for governments? You send a photo of your ID and it's all good, right? No, not even here, right? She sent a photo and she got it. She once goes into the office. Again, a long story short, she gets her ID. And then she needs a passport because she has to come back out because she needs a passport to study in Thailand to be a nurse. When she gets her ID, she goes to the passport office. And this is the midst of conflict. You realize there's fighting all around. Okay? The government's still working, sort of. She goes into the office. At first they said, oh, that's not the right ID. You can't do it with that. We get a message late that night. No, actually early morning. Usually 3 or 4 in the morning, she goes up the mountain to send a message if she can. She says, they said no, but I'm going back tomorrow. I trust God will do it. She goes back the next day. We get a message a day later. They agreed. I'm going to get my passport. She's supposed to get it tomorrow. But we haven't heard from her recently. And then they asked her, this is unheard of. They said, oh, do you need a visa also? She said, yeah, I need a visa. She didn't know she could do this. Okay, wait 2 more weeks and we'll get the visa too. I thought, how incredible is that? So by middle of May, she should be back out to our place, to the hub where we work. And the deadline for applying to nursing school is the end of May. So pray for that. Pray for her. She has just incredible heart. And, school has to be paid for and all those things. But, she's seen God work incredible miracles. She's one of the ones who grew up very poor, very hungry. She would often go to school, and she'd take a lunchbox because it looked good, but there was nothing in it. But people fed her along the way. And now she just has this compassion and wants to share that, her love with lots of people. And I'm reminded again, right? It's this beautiful unfolding story of Heo Tao, and all of our staff have gone through stuff and are going through stuff. But if we spend ourselves on behalf of the poor and the hungry, satisfy the needs of the oppressed, what will God do? We really don't know, do we? But we know he will do amazing things like heal people of cancer. Allow a person to have a baby when the doctor said no, because he gets the last word. Allow someone to get a visa and a passport in the midst of a war, and because the office said yes. And so many other things. Allow us to work in Buddhist schools, formerly Buddhist schools, working in 3 formerly Buddhist schools now. 1 actually meets in a Buddhist temple. Buddha is up on the stage, but we come in and God's at work in that place as well. And there's something we can all do. Okay? And I encourage you. And we encourage everyone, because this is really what God says, not what we say. Pray, help, give, and go. Okay? You can all pray? Okay, I'm signing you up. You can all help? In some way, we can all do something, right? We can all give, doesn't always mean money, right? And we can all go. I don't mean you all go to the border. I mean, Aaron would be lonely. But anyways, we can go somewhere. The important thing is, what is God telling you to do, right? What is the if that God's telling you? If you do this, I promise. So I know there's needs everywhere, and there are. That's true. I'm just going to show you a couple of things that we're doing right now. We're doing more. We call it Spring Hope happens here. Everything from supporting our staff, to filling what we call life packs, means school supplies, hygiene kits. Every month we probably give away somewhere close to 1,000 hygiene kits to schools, to homes, to places. Okay. Food. We give away a lot of food. Every month we average somewhere close to 10,000 kilograms a month of just rice. That's not including the other food. So I ask you to pray. Not if you're to help us, but that's up to you and God. But what are you supposed to do even in your own community, even in your own church here? What are you supposed to do? Because God's promise is very clear. If you do this, there's a lot of benefit, right? We don't do it for the benefit. We do it because we're obedient. We want to serve God. And I want to tell you one last thing I want to ask you to pray for, and then I'm going to close. We're in 3 rented facilities right now. We are packed. Some people, if you're like fishing analogies, we're packed to the gills, right? We don't have room to hardly work with 23 staff. So we've been looking, God, do you want us to go somewhere else? Do you want us to move? Is there a place, another facility, a piece of land? We're in the midst of setting up a Thai foundation, and God's shown us a piece of land. Okay? And if it's God, it'll be good. But pray for that as well. Can we just pray right now? So Lord, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to be here at RPC again, to share the hope that you have. Because you are a God of hope. You only want to instill hope and give hope to people and see people come to know you. So I pray that each person here will take that if, read those verses again and say to you, Lord, what am I to do? How am I supposed to help the hungry, the oppressed, the poor? What am I to do? And so, Lord, I ask blessing upon this church and what it's already doing. I ask you to continue to direct each person here in what you're asking them to do individually. Thank you. In the name of Jesus.
Thanks so much for joining us today. We hope you're drawn closer to Jesus and that His love, His Spirit, and His life are filling you right now. If you'd like to know more info about who we are and what we're doing at RPC, please head over to rpcchurch.ca to find out more. And if you like the podcast, you can subscribe. You can share it with your friends and family. You can click the share button, take a screenshot, and share it on your social stories and tag us at RPC Church. And one more thing before you go. We just want to remind you that you are loved by Jesus. God bless you.